All right, I've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about corruption in the United States government. I'm going to bring up some names like Vivek Ramaswamy and Nikki Haley that you probably know, and some of the shenanigans going on between them. But then I've got my good friend Ross Gibbons on, who's done research on how did Nikki Haley suddenly become a multimillionaire. So let's dive deep into that. Ross, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, Stephen, always a pleasure, man.
So you've been helping my community see how these CEOs and executives are making trades, making big double-digit returns. You've also been helping me expose the corruption of Nancy Pelosi and some of these other politicians. But I don't know if you caught this or not, but Vivek Ramaswamy was on the Patrick Bet David podcast last week, and he said that somebody needs to do a deep dive on Nikki Haley because she leaves government with almost no money and all of a sudden has a $4 million house. She's worth millions and millions of dollars. So I wanna dive into that. But it really does make me wonder, how do these politicians that have no money suddenly become multi-millionaires? I mean, were you aware of the Nikki Haley stuff before I pointed it out to you?
I wasn't, but I did do what you asked, and I did a deep dive, and I can tell you exactly where those $8 million and growing came from. She's not the first politician to use her office or her position to enrich herself. She won't be the last, and she is currently on the Nancy Pelosi fast track to riches.
Yeah. And then, we covered this, but it's now come out. Senator Bob Menendez, this guy has $400,000 stuffed in suit coat pockets in his house. He's
Yeah.
like, well, it's from the mafia, but it's not what it looks like. On top of that, hundreds of thousands of dollars in gold bars, not in a safe. And then it turns out this guy's been allegedly selling our secrets to the government of Egypt. I mean, if they're not willing to prosecute somebody for gold bars and influence peddling, are they ever going to pass a law that bans Congress from using insider trading to become multi-millionaires?
No, absolutely not. They never will. They haven't. They never will because they're all doing it. They're all using it. Nikki Haley's a great example, which we can go into in a minute. Like you said, she was essentially broke when she left the Trump administration. 5 years later, she's got a net worth of $8 million and counting. That's just what she's claiming. Who knows if it's more? So no, I don't think it's going to stop. And the only thing I know to do, and what I do, as is to try to use this information for my benefit, my readers' benefit, and piggyback off their information to try to make ourselves some money in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if they're not going to be prosecuted, then it just tips the scales in their favor, which makes me so crazy. Then on top of that, you have CEOs that obviously have insider trading. Now, this coming Wednesday, you guys are putting on a webinar at 3 o'clock where you're going to go deep into this. Can you tell me just a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I promise to do it again. We did it for viewers before, but these are completely free online sessions. But as you know, I mean, I've made a career out of tracking this stuff, following these insider trades. So what we try to do once every month or two, we'll hold one of these live sessions about an hour long, and we'll just show people how it works, how to track this information, how to see what stocks and investments they're making in real time, show you some best practices, and just try to really empower people to, like I said, level the playing field, use this information for their own advantage.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
And I'll
been
make
very
sure to,
fruitful for us, as you know.
yeah, I'll leave a link to that down below. But I asked you to dig in on Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
And so would you mind, like, where is her money coming from?
Yeah. So when it comes to politicians and getting rich, uh, there's really two ways. One is insider trading, which we'll talk about, and the other is influence peddling. Right. So when they're not in office, you take Hillary after, she's running for president, or Nikki when she's running for president. Generally, influence is the name of the game there. So Nikki Haley, here's where her money come from. Now, she's made, as we said, about $8 million the last few years. 2.3 million of that came from speaking events, and that's just in the last year. What a UN ambassador has to tell you that is so valuable it's worth 2.3 million, I don't really know. Another 700,000 in consulting fees. She was appointed to the board of directors of Boeing, the aerospace and defense company. She's received 300 grand in cash as well as stock from them. She's been appointed to the board of directors of United Homes Group, which pays a $250,000 annual salary for about 10 hours of work. She got a book advance of about 350 for that. That book she wrote called "If You Want Something Done," something about that, like empowering women. And then finally, she started getting all this money, all the fees, and all these private deals. She goes and buys this $2.4 million house on Kiowa Island in South Carolina. Well, that thing's doubled in value in the last couple of years. So that's generated another about $2.5 million. So all together, that's where this has come from. And again, it's just growing at an alarming pace. It's likely going to continue. And there's really nothing we can do to level the playing field when it comes to this kind of stuff. Like you said, this guy's got gold bars stashed in his wall from the mafia. They're not doing anything about it. They're surely not going to crack down on insider trading. We don't have their contacts. We don't have their Rolodex. But what we can do is follow their stock trades, piggyback off the information they have access to, and use that to make money.
Yeah, I wish that I could make, $2.5 million speaking. I think I saw Michelle Obama being paid $700,000 for a 1-hour speech. I mean, honestly, what could these people say that's worth?
That's the thing. There's no value. I shouldn't say there's no value, but it's not the value of what they're saying. It's the access to them. It's getting to meet them, exchanging numbers, taking photos. You could call if you. Oh, that guy wrote me $700,000 for an hour of work last year. Sure, I'll make a call to my senator friend when he needs something. That's really what it's about.
Gotcha. Okay. So the things that you and I could maybe take a look at in regards to stocks, what's Nikki Haley's situation?
Yeah, so a couple big ones she owns. One is at United Homes Group, UHG. This is a home building stock. So they put her on the board of directors. Like I mentioned, pays $250 a year. First question I ask myself is, what does a former United Nations ambassador possibly know about home building to justify this salary, et cetera? But anyway, that's one stock she owns. Interestingly, this company, they also gave her stock options worth another $300,000 a couple weeks after she announced her run for president. So, again, I don't think she did anything to justify this extra $300,000 besides announcing her bid for presidency. So clearly, they're looking to gain favor and influence with her. On the off chance she wins, let's be honest, she's not going to win. They know she's not going to win. But what happens when you run for president and don't win? If you're lucky, you get VP. If you're unlucky, you get some high-level cabinet position, all of which has influence for a minimum of 4 more years. So that's one stock she owns. It's up over 30% in just the last 6 weeks. She also owns Boeing, the aerospace and defense company. That stock's booming right now thanks to these wars in the Middle East that, of course, are being funded by our taxpayer dollars. She's got a big position in that. That stock's up 23% in just the last month.
Oh my gosh. So she gets the home stock, she gets the defense stock, and that's basically like 5 or 6 years worth of interest if you held a CD at the bank. And just by existing and having the influence she has, boom, she gets access to this. How common is this? I mean, is this just everyday life in Washington, D.C., or is it just certain politicians?
Yes. I mean, it's most, I should say. I can't speak intelligently to everyone's personal investments, but I track a lot of this stuff. And, the evidence is pretty clear. I mean, Congress, they dumped all their stocks in early 2020 when they got briefed on COVID before the market crashed. You've got individuals like Cindy Axne. She's trading Wells Fargo stock while she's on the Financial Services Committee investigating Wells Fargo. What? You got folks like Representative Earl Blumenauer, who's buying defense stocks the very day of the Russian invasion into Ukraine. You got folks like Rick Allen in the House, who was trading Merck and trading Johnson & Johnson while he served on the subcommittee working on prescription drug price legislation. right? You got Pelosi. I mean, she's the matron saint of insider trading. This lady's made 140 million inside trading these stocks. You know, she bought Microsoft a couple weeks before a huge army contract was awarded. She bought Tesla a couple weeks before Biden mandated the entire federal fleet go electric. She bought Nvidia right before this $52 billion subsidy from the government was announced, the CHIPS Act. That stock's up 400% this year. So it is very, very, very commonplace. And again, the only thing we can do, unless you just want to sit around and stew and be mad about it, is track this information, follow along, and try to make money piggybacking these trades.
Yeah, I can't even imagine like trying to pretend, oh, I didn't know that Google was about to go up. I didn't know
Yeah.
Nvidia was about to go up. What do I know? I just happened to dump $10 million into them.
Well, I mean, you think about it, it's like, you know, and she's doing like call options on the stuff, which is a super leveraged bet. That's like, you're either going to lose $2 million or you're going to make 20. I mean, that's something you do when you know it's a sure thing. And it's like, here she is, Speaker of the House. They're crafting the CHIPS Act, it was literally 52 billion in subsidies for American semiconductor companies to try to boost that up. The largest semiconductor company in the U.S. is NVIDIA. I mean, it's literally quadrupled this year. So you're talking about tens of millions of dollars per trade. This is not nickel and dime stuff. We're not just making a couple mortgage payments. They are getting filthy rich off the information they have access to.
Okay, so how do guys like me and you and those that are watching, how do we personally level the playing field? I know a lot of this comes down to what they call an information advantage. If somebody knows,
Yes.
like with COVID, right? They knew before the rest of us that they were going to shut everything down. So what did they do? They sold their stuff. So how do we get that information advantage edge?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can track this stuff. You know, when it comes to investing, the stock market's the only place that you can make money if you know anything. I mean, anything. You tell me 100% sure company's going to do this next month, you can make money on it. So what we do, we look for obvious situations, right? Politicians say a lot of things. Most of them aren't true, but I've found that you can usually trust what they do with their money. So if we see several insiders loading up on a stock, 6 and 7 figure amounts, completely out of nowhere, odds are pretty good some good news is about to be made public. Now, the only tough thing with these political insiders is the lag time. Now, based on the rules they created for themselves, they get up to 45 days to report those trades, congressional trade reports, and it's something known as a Stock Act. So if they wait the 45 days, sometimes you don't find out about it until it's too late. But the other group, these corporate insiders, we don't have that problem there. When you're talking about, like you mentioned, CEOs, CFOs, vice presidents, board members, other top executives, they are all required to report their trades, meaning when they buy their company stock with their money in 2 days. And those records are available to you and me and the rest of the American public immediately. So we can see exactly what they're buying in real time. And so all I do, and what I've made a career doing, is look for these instances of clear opportunistic buying and just notify you and my other members when we see this. So just as an example, the most recent one, we did a stock called Barnes Group, ticker is B. Not a super exciting company, but what happened, the company reported bad earnings. Stock falls like 40%, looks bad. But right after that, the president, CEO, vice president, the general counsel, along with 4 members of the board, all bought the stock. And I'm not talking a couple shares, 110,000 here, 1.2 million, 2 million here, big buys. So we just fought along. That stock is up 26% in just the last 3 weeks.
Oh, okay. So it goes down for the general public, but they know, hey, here's what's coming up next quarter. Here's what we're going to release. Here's, the lawsuits that we're going to win or lose or whatever. And then boom, they start buying, and you say, whoa, out of nowhere, these guys start buying. And then you guys put out like an alert.
Yeah, it's usually one of two things. It's either like that, the stock's at 10, goes to 5, gets too cheap, they load up, we follow along, or it's sitting up here at the highs, suddenly they're buying. We're like, what do they know? And then it's a big drug approval or some big deal or a merger or a buyout gets announced and the stock rips higher. That's generally what we're looking for.
Okay. And how reliable is this? I mean, do the stocks always go up, or what are you looking for?
Not always. No, I mean, yeah, full disclosure. Obviously, nothing's 100%. Every once in a while, the insiders, maybe they're wrong. Maybe it's just coincidence. It just happened to all be buying. Sometimes they're working on a big deal, a big buyout, and it falls apart. The stock doesn't run like we've seen. It is more rare. What I like to tell people is this: listen, when you've got the president, the CEO, the CFO, half the board buying their company stock with their money in their own account, odds are, at the least, you're probably not going to see any bad news anytime soon, right? So from that respect, I think it's a far, far safer way to pick stocks. The odds they would do that before bad news are almost zero. And sometimes the returns are phenomenal. We've had tons of stocks that have doubled and tripled. We own one stock we're up 1,500% on. I think at the peak we're up like 1,900%. So you don't need many of those to really move the needle. And again, it's all about just stacking those odds in your favor. Finding those situations that just seem clear as day, common sense stuff. And that's what I train people on in these sessions: is what to look for. Yes, you can see the insiders are buying, but is it just one guy, or is it 3 or 4 or 5 people buying? Do they buy every month, or is it like the first time anyone's bought in 4 or 5 years? Do they buy in the past? Okay. Did they buy before it went up? Did they buy at the bottom? Like, do they have a good track record? You put all this together, and you can pretty quickly discover those opportunities that seem to be the most lucrative and have all the markers of those that have led to the big returns in the past.
Yeah, no, you make a really good point. It's like they have to disclose within like 2 days, so the
Yeah.
time frames very, very quickly. But then, CEO Bob is not going to put $2 million into a stock he knows is about to collapse, right? So I like that logic. Okay, remind me again that this coming Wednesday, the 29th at
That's
3
right. Yeah.
p.m.
Wednesday, 29th, 3 p.m. Eastern. I think you were going to put a link below this video, so that should be there. It's 100% free. The only thing is we are limited to 1,000 spots. So we use software called GoToWebinar to broadcast and share this information. So you'll see my screen, you'll see me, and we'll be talking and interact. But the bandwidth's maxed at 1,000. I don't know why. We usually fill up because you've got such a large following. So I just encourage people, register early, show up on time. And then also what we're doing this time, anyone who registers, we're going to send them the full research on our most recent pick. Another we're putting out, we just put out yesterday. We're going to send that to them as well, free of charge. So it's a way to kind of see the research and get a new investment idea as well, even if you can't attend. So even if you can't come, I encourage you register for that down there.
Yeah, you guys sent me that, and the information is so detailed. And then like I was on searching things, and it's awesome. Very, very detailed. Well, Ross, I know you're busy. I want to thank you for coming on. You and I don't get paid the same consulting fees as Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
But Vivek Ramaswamy is calling attention to this. And so I appreciate you doing all the research on behalf of my community. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Stephen. Always good to talk to you.